We continue today with the 11th chapter of the book of Judges. I say good morning to you from your hometown of Washington, D.C., 5:42 in the morning. V'yiftach hagiladi haya gibor chayil, v'hu ben isha zona, vayoled Gilad et Yiftach. So we introduced a person. At the end of the last chapter, Bnei Israel had sinned. God had not yet sent them a Moshiach. There was no messenger. There was no, not messenger. There's no shofet. There was no sort of Messiah. There was no champion to lead them against their enemies. And here it seems like we take a detour where we mention this person named Yiftach, and he was from the Gilad, and he was a great warrior. But even though he was a great warrior, he didn't have the best yichus. He was the son of a prostitute. Vateled eshet Gilad lo banim, vaygadlu vnei isha v'yagershu et Yiftach vayomru lo tinchal b'beit avinu ki ben isha acheret ata. So this man Gilad, who had a son, Yiftach, was born to him through a prostitute. After that, he decided to go get married, and he had many sons. And when the sons grew up, they said to their older brother, "Get out of here! Your mother was a prostitute. You're not going to have any Yerusha. You're not going to get any property from our father." Vayivrach Yiftach mipnei echav, vayeshev be'eretz tov, vayitlaktu el Yiftach anashim rekim, vayitzu imo. So Yiftach flees, he runs away, and he settles in a place called Tov, and he has a certain persona. People gather around him. They are not people who are of great spirit. They're people who are rake, people who are empty, but still he has something to him that is drawing people to him. Vayihi miyamim, vayilachmu b'nei Ammon im Yisrael. We're told sometime later, after Yiftach had been exiled by his brethren, there are wars between Bnei Yisrael and the Ammonites. Vayihi kasher nilchamu b'nei Ammon im Yisrael, vayelchu ziknei Gilad lakachet et Yiftach me'eretz tov. And when this war was happening, and Bnei Israel obviously were losing, they were desperate, and therefore they went and found Yiftach because he was a great warrior. Vayomru Yiftach lecha vayitu lanu lekatzin v'nilchama b'vnei Ammon. And they turn to Yiftach and they say, "Come, join us and be our chief, so that we can fight the Ammonites." Right? We've been defeated by them, and we know you're a great warrior. Vayomerim Yiftach leziknei Gilad. We're in verse 7. Halo atem snei temoti. He said to them, "You rejected me. You drove me out of my father's house. Now you come to me when you're in trouble." And of course, Yiftach's answer here is sort of the same answer that God gives to Bnei Israel. Now that you're in trouble, now that you've been attacked by the Canaanites, the Midianites, the Moabites, now you're the Ammonites, you're turning to me and asking me to help you. So Yiftach here, in a sense, is almost a parody of the way God should have, or at times, in a sense, in a smaller way, did react to Bnei Israel. Right? Go and ask the gods of those people to help you. So they said to him, "Oh, we know, but now we're back. And if you fight with us, we will make you the commander, the head of all of Gilad. Not just that you'll be a chief, but you are going to be the leader of everybody." Vayomer Yiftach ziknei Gilad, im mishivim atem oti lelachem b'vnei Ammon v'natan Adonai otam lefanai, anochi ahayeh lachem l'rosh. So Yiftach says to them, "Very well. If you bring me back to fight the Ammonites and God delivers them to me, I will be your commander. I will be the Rosh." And the elders of Gilad answered him, and they said, "God is a witness between us that this is what happens." So Yiftach went with them, and he was made their commander and their chief. He's not yet the Rosh fully because he hasn't won, but Yiftach is, going with them into battle, and he stands before God and repeats all of the terms to God at Mitzvah. It's interesting just to think of this story of Yiftach with the backdrop of Ishmael, for example. Ishmael is the older son. He wasn't the son of a prostitute, but he was a son of a ama, of a servant, and he was exiled. And here, the child who was exiled is asked to come back and to lead the family. So interesting just to think about. And that's part of obviously larger questions, and especially in the stories of Breshit, but other places in the Tanakh as well, where we have multiple children from multiple wives, and who is the preferred child, who is the preferred wife, who is going to take the reins. And so here is one of these stories where the child who is seen as being lesser because of his mother, because of her background, is now the person that's in charge. Continuing verse 12. Yiftach sends a message to the king of Ammon. He says, what's the problem? Why are you waging war on our country? So the king of Ammon says, when Israel came from Egypt, they seized the land which was mine, from Arnon to Yabok, as far as the Jordan, and now give it back to me. Vayosef od Yiftach vayishlach melachim el melech b'nei Ammon. So Yiftach again sends messengers to the king of Ammon. Vayomer lo, we're in verse 15, pasuk Teva. Ko amar Yiftach, lo lakach Yisrael teretz Moav teretz b'nei Ammon. Yiftach said, we didn't take your land. Ki ba'alotam mitzrayim. Vayelech Yisrael b'midbar yam suf vayavo kadesha. When Bnei Israel left Egypt, they traveled through the wilderness to the Sea of Reeds and went on to Kadesh. Vayishlach Yisrael melachim al melech Edom lemor e'ebrana v'artzecha v'lo shama melech Edom v'gam melech Moav shalach v'lo ava vayeshiv Yisrael b'Kadesh. We were in the desert, and we were traveling towards Canaan. We sent a message to the king of Edom. We said, let us pass through your land. And he said, no, thank you. We sent a message to the king of Moab, and he said, no, thank you. They both refused. Vayelech b'midbar. So we were wandering in the desert. We didn't have a way. There was no road for us to get to our home where we were trying to get to. Vayasav el eretz Edom, vel eretz Moab, vayavo mizrach shemesh l'eretz Moab, vayacham nun, ve'ever Arnon, velo bo, bigvul Moab, ki Arnon gvul Moab. So we were traveling around to try to find a way. We went around the land of Ammon, land of Moab, and we encamped in Arnon because that we didn't enter the Moabite territory. And then Vayishlach Yisrael melachim al Sichon melech Amori melech Heshbon, vayerma lo Yisrael na'abrana ba'artzecha ad mekomi. So we sent a message now to Sichon, the Amorite king. And we said to him, allow us to cross through your land to go to where we want to go, to the land God has promised us, into Canaan. Velohem in Sichon et Yisrael, Avor, Bigvulo. But Sichon did not trust Israel that they would just pass through his land. Min emunah, trust, belief. He didn't support Bnei Israel doing this. But Sichon, unlike the other kings, doesn't just allow them, say, don't pass through my land. He now actively goes to wage war against them. Verse 21, Vayitein Adonai Elohei Yisrael Tzichon v'et kol ha'amo b'yad Yisrael vayakum vayirash Yisrael kol eretz ha'amori yoshev ha'aretz hahi. And what happens? Sorry, Sichon, but God delivers Sichon to our hands. We defeat him. We take his territory. We possessed all the territory that was formerly the territory of Sichon, the Amorite king. Arnon, Yavok, to the wilderness, the Jordan, Vata, Adonai Elohei Yisrael, Horishat Amori, Bnei Amo Yisrael, Vata Tirashenu. So God, what did he do? God gave us the land, took it away from the Amorites, and therefore it's our land. So you think, king of Ammon, that it's your land? God took it from the Amorites, Amori, and gave it to us. Halo et asher yorishcha kamosh Elohecha ototi rosh ve'et kol asher horish Adonai Eloheinu mipanenu otoni rash. This is not your land. Whatever is yours, you can have. Whatever God has given us is ours. Your facts. You're giving us alternative facts. Your history is not a correct history. We did not steal this land from you, king of Ammon. This was the Amorite land, the land of the Amori, and we defeated him in battle. Ve'ata hatov tovata mi Balak ben Sipor melech Moab. Are you any better than Balak, the king of Moab? Harov Rav Yisrael milcham bam. Did he start a quarrel with Israel, go to war with them? B'Shevet Yisrael b'Cheshbon u'v'noteo v'Aror v'noteo v'chol ha'arim asher al yedei Arnon 300 shana u'madu lo itzalta beitahi. Here's sort of a new claim, he says. We've been living here for 300 years. Where have you been? If this was your land, Ammonites, why'd you wait 300 years? There's a statute of limitations. Obviously, this wasn't your land. You're just using this as a provocation to come to war, to come to battle against us. This is not your land. Vanochi lo chatati lach ve'ata oseh iti ra'a lilachem bi yishpot Adonai shofet hayom bein bnei Yisrael uvein bnei Ammon. I've done no wrong. You're harming me, Ammonites. You're making war with me. May God decide between Israel and Ammon. It's interesting to think about. We think about Israel and Ammon. You have to, of course, think who is the progenitor of Ammon is Lot. Lot is the father of Ammon and Moab. Lot and Avram, who separate. Avram says, "You go this way, I'll go that way." Right? We don't want to have fights between us. Let's have a nice fence. Good fences make good neighbors. And here we see fights breaking out. The Ammonites are going through the fence, knocking down the fence to attack Bnei Israel. Bnei Israel, with their leader Yiftach, is saying, God will be the judge to decide who is right. Lo shama melech bnei Ammon et divrei Yiftach asher shalach alav. But the king of Ammon refuses the overtures of peace, refuses the attempts at negotiations to tell the Ammonites as to why they are unjust in what they are saying. And therefore, what's going to happen is war. Continuing in verse 29, Pasuk Chavtet. Vatihi al Yiftach ruach Adonai. Vayavor et HaGilad v'et Menashe, vayavor et Mitzpah Gilad, u'Mitzpah Gilad avar b'nei Ammon. So the Spirit of God came upon Yiftach, right, Ruach Hashem, and he goes through the Gilad and through Menashe, and he passes through Mitzpah. He's passing through all this territory until he gets to the territory of the Ammonites. Vayidar Yiftach neder ladonai, vayomar. Yiftach, he makes a vow to God, and he says, Imnaton titain et bnei Ammon biyadi. God, if you give the Ammonites in my hands, v'haya yotzei asher yotzei midaltei ve'iti likrati v'shuvi v'shalom mibnei Ammon v'yal Adonai v'alitihu olah. Then whoever or whatever comes out of the door of my house to greet me at my safe return shall be God's. It will be offered to God as a burnt offering. By name Adonai biyado. Yiftach goes and he's successful in battle. He defeats the Ammonites. God delivers them by a calm, by a cane, or air, v'adboacha. Minit esrim ir v'ad evel kramim makan gdola ma'od v'yiknu b'nei Ammon b'nei Israel. And b'nei Israel just decimate them. 20 towns they captured all over, and the Ammonites have to submit to B'nai Yisrael. Vayavo Yiftach hamitzbal beito. Now Yiftach's going back to his house. V'hinei vito yotzeit likrato betupim uvemicholot. And his daughter comes out to greet him with dancing, with her musical instrument. V'raki yichida ein lo mimenu ben ovat. And she was an only child. He had no other son or daughter. Vayichiroto vayikrat begadav vayomer aha biti hachrei hichreatini va'at hayita ba'ochri va'anochi patsiti pi el Adonai v'lo chalashav. He sees her, he tears his clothing, he says, "Oh my God, my daughter, you've brought me low, you become such trouble for me. I uttered a vow and I cannot retract." And the word patsiti sounds a lot like yiftach, but it's the opposite. Yiftach, patach, to open a vow, to open your mouth. And patsiti, he's saying, no, I can't. I've uttered a vow and there's nothing I can do. I cannot go back. I cannot return. Vatomer elav avi patsiti. Patsita picha el Adonai aseli kasher yatsa mi picha acharei asher asa lecha Adonai nekamot moevecha mibnei Ammon. She says to him, Dad, you made a vow. There's nothing we can do about it. God has answered you. God has allowed you to defeat the Ammonites. Vatomer elavia ya'aseh li'adavar hazeh harpei mimeni shnayim chodashim ve'elchav yaralti al heharim ve'evkeb al betulotai anochi v'reotai. She says, Dad, fine, go through with it. This is the vow. You cannot go back on the vow, but just let me have 2 months to spend time with my companions, to cry about my maidenhood, to cry about the fact that I did not experience life fully, and then fulfill your vow. She goes with her friends, and they cry in the hills about her life. And it's 2 months later, and he fulfills his vow. And it was a custom in Israel. What's the custom? Verse 40, last verse in the chapter. Miyamim yamima telachna bnot Yisrael litanot levat yiftach hagiladi arba'at yamim bashana. The maiden of Israel would go every year for 4 days of year and chant dirges and sing and lament for the daughter of Yiftach Hagiladi. And there's so much difficulty in this chapter in understanding this leader of Bnei Israel. And there are really a lot of interesting things. Obviously, the major question that's always been asked is, does Yiftach kill her? Does she just live out her life in singlehood? What exactly does it mean? And there are different commentaries who say different things. This whole idea that she's crying on her virginity, she's not crying for her life. So maybe she was allowed to remain alive, but she had to remain, in a sense, like a carbon. We wouldn't sacrifice her, but unused, not part of regular society. So she's sort of separated. Why does Yiftach not try to get rid of this vow? There are many who've asked that question. Why did he go? And his stubbornness, his lack of desire to try to change his vow. And there's also a very interesting thing that's going on here, which was written about by Professor, I believe at JTS, Professor Zubin, who writes about how part of what it's saying in this chapter is whoever is supposed to inherit will ultimately inherit. Yiftach doesn't seem like he's the person who should inherit. He is Ben Isha Zonah. He's the son of a prostitute. This is not, in the 21st century, us making judgments about people's backgrounds, backdrops, but back then that's seen as lesser. And even though it seems in his generation that he's going to take over, that he's going to get the inheritance, that he's going to be the Rosh V'Katzin, he's going to be the leader of all of Giladi, in the end, he and his family will not be that, because he has no children. He has only one daughter. And thus the land of Gilad, the leadership of Gilad, will not go to Yiftach. It will go to those who believed, even if though they were oppressors of Yiftach, even though they were bad people, they pushed him away because of his lineage. They unfortunately will be the ones who take over control of their territory and of their time. And just one last comment, which is, again, this is what we said earlier, Yiftach presents sort of starting with the second half of this book, where we're seeing problematic leaders. Bnei Israel don't initially, they complain to God. God doesn't just give them right away a new leader. It takes time. We're introduced to this person. There's a whole strange story. And who is this person? On the one hand, he's saving Bnei Israel, but on the other hand, he's killing or not allowing his daughter to have children. Either way, in a sense, while he's saving the larger community, he's also killing his community. He's also not allowing his community to prosper. And sometimes you have that where leaders, do things that seem on the grand scale great, but on the individual level can be very, very problematic. And this is a problematic leader in Yiftach, and we'll see other ones in the upcoming days.